where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, you know, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
This is my video update on this Wednesday afternoon, February the 19th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And Trump, he gave a press conference yesterday. I believe he was at Mar-a-Lago. And he was talking about some new executive orders that he had signed. And then he took some questions from reporters. And of course, the questions were about the U.S.-Russia negotiations that are taking place, that took place in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh. The pigeons have arrived to listen to the news. Yeah. All right. They want to hear some news. Well, let's talk about some news, pigeons. Let's talk about Trump and what he said at this press conference. So he once again said that he wants the war to end. He said that he wants the killing to stop. He said that this war would have never happened if he was president. It was Biden and Biden's incompetence. And he also said that Ukraine men are dying, Russian men are dying. And he also said that North Korean soldiers, Ukraine soldiers, Russian soldiers, and he also said North Korean soldiers are also being killed in this war, which I thought was an interesting comment from Trump. Perhaps some Kellogg information hangover or something from the info he was getting from Kellogg. He still buys into this North Korea narrative, but no problem. Whatever. Okay, the North Korean soldiers. He was asked about European peacekeepers. This was interesting, and Trump said that he has no problem with Europe, the UK sending peacekeepers into Ukraine. He said he has no problem at all, but it's not going to be U.S. soldiers in Ukraine. Yeah, Trump really doesn't care about whether Europe sends peacekeepers or not. He could not care. He could not give a flying you-know-what. He's like, they want to send peacekeepers? I have no problem with that, he said. But it's not going to be U.S. peacekeepers, and they will be doing it without the U.S. and without U.S. security guarantees and NATO Article 5 and stuff like that. Trump knows that Europe's not going to send troops to Ukraine without U.S. protection. And Russia has said many times that they will not accept European collective West, UK peacekeepers in Ukraine. Actually, Lavrov said it yesterday during a press conference. He said it again for like the 100th. Just turned the fountain on. He said it for the 100th time. We will not agree to have peacekeepers in Ukraine, no matter what deal is reached. And the Russian policy is that if foreign troops, collective West troops, are sent to Ukraine, then they will be treated as enemy combatants. That's the Russian line. Trump knows this. Trump knows this. That's why he comes out with a statement and says, whatever, if Europe wants to send troops, go ahead. Doesn't concern us. Interesting statement from Trump. He was then asked about why Ukraine does not have a seat at the negotiating table. And Trump said, look, Kiev had 3 years to have a seat at the negotiating table, implying that Ukraine had 3 years to solve this conflict. And they did not. He actually expressed disappointment at the fact that the Elensky regime did absolutely nothing to end this conflict. All they did was escalate. Trump even said that this conflict was easy to solve. He actually said that. He said that, I forgot the words that he used, but he said that even an average negotiator, he said something like that, an average negotiator would have been able to solve this problem. Even before the conflict started, he said this was easy to solve. And he's right. He is right. The conflict could have easily been solved by just saying Ukraine will not be entering NATO. Look at all the parakeets. So many of them, huh? Look at how many parakeets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Wow. Amazing. It's like 14, 15 parakeets just hanging out. That is so cool. So that's what he said about Kiev having a seat at the table. They had their chance and they blew it. That was pretty much what he said. On elections in Ukraine, he was asked about elections in Ukraine, and he pretty much approved elections in Ukraine. He signed off on that. And he actually said that Elensky has a 4% popularity. His popularity is at 4%, Trump said. Oh, wow, 4%. It's not at 4%. To be fair to the Green Goblin, it's probably at, to be more realistic, I would say it's at 14% or 20%, somewhere around there, maybe 25%. Elensky fired back at Trump, and he actually came out with a statement. I think I have it bookmarked. Yeah, he said his rating is not 4%, but it's 54%. If it's 54%, Green Goblin, hold elections. It's an easy win if it's 54%, but he knows it's not 54%. In his dreams, it's 54%. Now, his approval is probably around the 20%, give or take. But Trump saying that it's at 4% just shows how much Trump just does not respect or like Elensky. He wants him gone. He wants Elensky out of there. That's why he says 4%. What else did Trump say? He talked about the money in Ukraine, or where did the money go, actually. That's what he said. Where did all the money go? He's right. Where did the money go? There's going to be an audit. There probably is an audit already underway. But he said, where did all the money go that we gave them? Seizing on Elensky's comments that he made. I mean, Elensky put himself in this situation with the comments that he made during that Associated Press interview. It was either an interview with the AP or with Reuters. I think it was with the AP, where Zelensky said, I only got 74 billion. 200 billion, but I only got 74 billion, Mr. Reporter. I don't know where the other 124 billion, 125 billion went. I got 74 to 75 billion. That was one dumb comment from Elensky, man. That was dumb. Why would you say that? That was just a dumb comment. Mr. President, we gave you 200 billion. Yeah, but I only got 74. The other 120 whatever billion, I don't know. I don't know where that went. So now Trump is asking questions. He's like, where is the 120 billion? And Trump says it's not 200 billion. Elensky said 200 billion. The Associated Press said 200 billion. Trump is saying 350 billion. So Elensky's saying he only got 70 plus billion. And Trump is saying we gave you 350 billion. Well, if I do my Annalena math, that's about 350 minus 74. That's about 200 and something. Annalena math, 360 billion. Elensky's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, is he? He also talked about inflation, actually. Trump said that he wants inflation to go down. He was talking about the negotiations with Russia and doing business with Russia. And I remember him saying something about inflation and getting energy trade, energy moving again, and bringing inflation down. To me, that signals that he wants to do business with Russia. Energy, remove the energy sanctions, the gas and the oil sanctions, and that's the quickest way to bring inflation down. When he said that, I immediately thought, I wonder if he's listening to Alexander, because Alexander says that all the time. Says that all the time. If you really want to bring inflation down right away, like very quickly, the easiest move you can make is just remove all the dumb sanctions on Russia and the shadow fleet, the shadow tankers, the ghost tankers. Remove all that nonsense, and you're going to have a pretty quick result. So I thought that was interesting when he talked about that. But going back to the peacekeepers, the whole peacekeeper debate, it looks like Starmer, Keir Starmer 008, license to bore you. It looks like Starmer is isolated on peacekeepers. Well, UK, British troops will be the only troops in Ukraine, maybe, possibly, definitely not. But Macron, he gave an interview yesterday, I believe, with the publication La Dépêche Mode. No, not La Dépêche Mode, La Dépêche. And Macron said, you know what, I changed my mind. France is not going to send troops to Ukraine. Flip-flopper Macron. Today, I'm going to send troops to Ukraine along with the UK. The US is not going to provide security guarantees, Mr. President Macron. Well, I changed my mind. We're not going to send troops to Ukraine. Tomorrow, he's going to give an interview, and after he talks to Starmer, and he's going to say, I changed my mind. We'll send troops to Ukraine. Flip-flopper Macron. Make up your mind. Make up your mind, Emmanuel Macron. But that's what he said. No French troops to Ukraine. So no German troops to Ukraine, no French troops to Ukraine, no Polish troops to Ukraine. It looks like Starmer's isolated. Oh, wait 1 second. Lithuania. Breaking news. Breaking news. 1 sec. Lithuania. Lithuania is not yet talking about sending its troops to Ukraine. Advisor to the Lithuanian president. If Lithuania does decide to send troops, and the UK sends 25,000 troops, even though the UK Sun is now saying that Starmer could only possibly send 10,000 troops to Ukraine. So let's go with the Sun. If Starmer were to send 10,000 troops, plus the two soldiers from Lithuania, which consists of their entire military, that would be 10,002 troops to Ukraine. But the breaking news, according to the office of the president of Lithuania, is that they have not made a decision yet. Lithuania is not yet talking about sending its troops to Ukraine. So instead of 10,002 troops to Ukraine, we're going to stick with 10,000 British soldiers to Ukraine. Starmer is isolated on this. Are there any decisions that Starmer makes that are correct, that are spot on? Any? I mean, the guy chooses poorly. He is on the wrong side of everything. Everything. Man. Starmer. Keir Starmer. 008. Mr. Stormer, Keir Stormer. What am I saying? I'm saying Keir Starmer. Keir Stormer, 008, license to bore you. Mr. Stormer, what would you like to drink? I will have a grape fruit juice, shaken, not stirred. All the ladies go crazy when they see Keir Stormer. Oh, boy. He is completely incompetent, that guy. It blows me away how incompetent he is. It really blows me away. So that's the situation with the peacekeepers. Once again, Lavrov said that there will be no peacekeepers in Ukraine. So the Russians don't even understand why the Europeans are going on and on about peacekeepers. Even Trump is saying, I don't care. You want to send peacekeepers, go ahead. You don't want to send peacekeepers, go ahead. We're exiting the Project Ukraine business. Oh boy, so the results from the Lavrov-Rubio talks, the U.S.-Russia Riyadh negotiations. We got the statements from both Russia and the United States that both countries are going to restore their diplomatic missions. So all the diplomats that were expelled, starting with Obama, he started this. Obama started all of this, expelling Russian diplomats from the United States. Then Russia had to retaliate, and they had to expel U.S. diplomats. And I think even today, we don't have ambassadors. Actually, I believe yesterday, the United States finally appointed an ambassador to Moscow. But I believe that Russia still has not appointed their ambassador to the United States. I'm not sure, but all that stuff is going to be fixed, which is a good sign. So that means that that both countries will be able to better communicate going forward, to better work together going forward. And one of the things that they decided yesterday was to create working groups on Project Ukraine. So the talks were not only about Project Ukraine. Ukraine was just one part of the talks that really did center around normalizing U.S.-Russia relations. And when it comes to Project Ukraine, what they're going to do is they are going to create working groups. For example, the U.S. already announced that it's going to assign Keith Kellogg to deal with Ukraine and with the Europeans, with the EU. So each country is going to appoint officials to deal with the various parts with Project Ukraine. And they're going to gather information and talk to various people in Europe and in Ukraine and in Russia. And then they're going to continue to negotiate based on what they find. And Kellogg is going to be dealing with Ukraine and with Europe. And he actually, from what I understand, he met with Ursula. Did he meet with Ursula? Or did he call Ursula, Keith Kellogg? I know he's in Kiev today. He is in Kiev going to meet with the Elensky regime. Ursula posted on X, important discussion with General Kellogg on Ukraine. Financially and militarily, Europe has brought more to the table than anyone else, and we will step up. We want to partner with the U.S. to deliver a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Now is a critical moment. Ursula is a terrible diplomat. She's just a terrible diplomat. So she's going to meet with the U.S. Envoy, the person that has been assigned to communicate with Europe from these working groups. And what does she post on X? She tells the United States, financially and militarily, I don't know why I can't say that word. She says Europe has brought more to the table than anyone else. She's basically telling the United States, we've done more than you, Trump. She is such a bad diplomat. My God, she's so bad. She is awful, 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 awful. Completely incompetent. Anyway, that's what she posted on X. So she spoke with Kellogg, and Kellogg is there to keep her occupied. He's there to keep Europe occupied. He's there to keep Ukraine occupied. he's been assigned to Ukraine and to the Europeans in order to keep them distracted, to make them feel as if they're being listened to when they're not. And that's Kellogg's job, because Kellogg, he's going to tell them what they want to hear. They're going to all sit around in some room together, and Kellogg's going to talk about Russia is losing and they're running out of weapons and they're using shovels. And I read somewhere, Ursula, that they're taking washing machine chips and putting them in tanks and fighter jets. And Ursula's going to be sitting across the table from Kellogg going, yes, yes, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. They are in tatters, you see? In tatters, Mr. Kellogg, I told you. I thought I was going crazy, but I'm not going crazy. That's why Kellogg's been assigned to the Europeans and to Ukraine. But he was in Kiev, and he met with the U.S. ambassador in Kiev, and he's going to be meeting with the Elensky regime. The Russians have not yet assigned their officials to take on the responsibility of these working groups, but Russia will assign their people very soon. Rubio, when he gave his press conference after the meetings with Lavrov, he actually said that if relations between Russia and the United States are indeed normalized, then sanctions will be lifted. He said logically sanctions should be lifted. West will have to reconsider Russia's sanctions as part of Ukraine peace deal. Rubio. Ending the conflict could open up historic opportunities for U.S.-Russia relations, the U.S. Secretary of State has said. The top U.S. diplomat maintained that the process of sanctions removal would involve Washington's allies in Europe as well. The EU is going to be at the negotiations table at some point because they have sanctions as well that have been imposed, he said. You go off of Rubio's statement, and you know what Rubio is saying? He is saying when and if we manage to normalize relations, we come to some sort of deal with Project Ukraine, some sort of peace deal. If that time comes, then we're going to call in the Europeans. We're going to lift sanctions as the United States, and we're going to start doing business with Russia. And then we're going to call in the Europeans, and we're going to tell them, come to the table, sign these documents and lift the sanctions on Russia. Sign the documents, lift the sanctions on Russia. And Ursula's going to say no, no, no. And then Rubio's going to say yes, yes, yes. And then she's going to sign the documents and lift all of the European sanctions on Russia. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's basically what Rubio is saying. That's going to be Europe's part in the negotiations. That's going to be the role that they actually play. They're going to be called into the room. The little kids are going to be called into the adult room, and they're going to be told to sign a document to lift sanctions on Russia. And they're going to do it. Absolutely. So that's what Rubio said in his statement after the meeting. Russian officials, they were even talking about the United States and Russia working together in the Arctic. They floated that out there. Very interesting. Why not? You know, they worked together before when it came to the Arctic, when it came to all kinds of gas and oil projects. I remember a project that they had with the Exxon, a very big project that they had with Exxon, and all of that was ruined because of the dumb bonehead sanctions. All those projects, all that partnership, all that business destroyed because of the sanctions. And so the U.S. is saying, look, Russia is saying to the U.S., look, you guys have an interest in the Arctic. Why do we have to turn the Arctic into some sort of competition? Let's work on it together, peacefully. Let's make it beneficial for everybody. For us, for you, for China, for everybody. For Canada. Absolutely. Why not? So that was an interesting statement from the Russian officials, and it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. So the plan that I talked about yesterday, which was floating around about the peace roadmap, I'm not sure where this originated. I want to say Fox News. I think I was listening to, Alexander, his video update yesterday. I think he said that the plan most likely originated from Fox News, where they were saying that the roadmap to a settlement in Ukraine was going to be 3 steps. It was going to consist of a ceasefire, and then elections, and then the new government in Ukraine would sign the final peace deal. Anyway, that plan that was floating around was debunked yesterday afternoon after I uploaded my video by Lavrov. Lavrov said that there's no such plan like this that's being considered. So I wanted to update everybody on that. But I will say that one thing that I did mention yesterday, I think still holds, and that is a ceasefire. Even though the Russians have said many, many times, multiple times, that there will be no ceasefire, Trump, in his press conference yesterday, he said that he would like a ceasefire. I do think that if certain conditions are met, if the terms of Istanbul Plus are met, then Russia will agree to a ceasefire. But the conditions of Istanbul Plus have to be met. These are the conditions that Putin laid down in his speech to the foreign ministry in June. Istanbul Plus, as Alexander calls it. So if they fulfill those conditions, if the U.S. says, okay, we agree with Istanbul Plus, then I think the fighting stops. But Istanbul Plus it's hard. It's going to be hard for the collective West. It's going to be hard for Ukraine to agree with Istanbul Plus. But, after the negotiations yesterday, and after the speeches from Hegseth and Vance, and all the statements from Trump, we are getting close, or at least we're inching closer to the United States agreeing to all of Russia's terms when it comes to Istanbul Plus. I mean, think about it. Think about it. No NATO, that's a given. I don't even think we need to even talk about no NATO. I think everyone agrees Ukraine is not getting into NATO. The regions, the 4 oblasts, that's a hard one for Ukraine to agree to. But look, Putin said it. Istanbul Plus, our terms. The 4 regions, Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Lugansk, in their entirety, are part of the Russian Federation. And our terms are that the Ukraine military has to leave. They have to drop their weapons or take their weapons and leave. Leave Russian land. That's tough. That's going to be a tough one for the collective West, Ukraine, NATO to swallow. I mean, Ukraine could, the Elensky government could collapse. It probably will collapse if they were to agree to that. Elensky would be in big trouble if he was to agree to that. But those are the terms in Istanbul Plus. That's what Putin said. So that one's going to be a tough one. But the Russians are standing firm on that. They're not giving an inch when it comes to the 4 territories. They want Ukraine out. And Ukraine, from what I read, actually I think this came from the Institute for the Study of War, Newland's think tank. They said that right now Ukraine controls, I think they said in Zaporozhye and Kherson, they have about 30% of those oblasts, and the rest is Russian. I think that's the number that they put out there. Denazification, demilitarization, that's another requirement in Istanbul Plus. Elections solves that, if you think about it, which the U.S. has agreed to. The U.S. has pretty much agreed to that. You get elections. You get someone in Kiev who is friendly to Moscow, and you can easily get to the demilitarization, and then you can get the denazification as well. You can hunt down the Banderites, or the Banderites, they end up going to, I don't know, going to Poland or something. You kick them out and send them to Europe, all the Banderites, right? That can happen. As long as you get a government in Kiev that can work with the government in Moscow through elections, then you can achieve the denazification, the demilitarization. And when it comes to elections, Russia and the US are on the same page. They are absolutely on the same page. And the other big term for Istanbul Plus, the other big requirement, is a discussion on security architecture in Europe, a new security architecture in Europe, which takes Russia's interests into consideration. And here I also believe that the US is starting to move towards Russia's position. This doesn't have to be agreed on right away. We just need a commitment. Russia just needs a commitment that this is going to be discussed. This is going to be talked about. And I think you already have pieces of that out there. If you go by Hegseth's speech, if you go by what Vance said, if you go by what Trump has said, Europe, we are not going to protect you anymore. We're not going to be having troops in Ukraine. You guys need to take care of yourselves. You need to up your defense spending. You need to take care of your own security. We're not going to be babysitting you guys anymore. I think that points a bit to a new security architecture that can be worked out between Russia and the United States. The fact that the US is telling Europe, you guys need to think about your security instead of just relying on us all the time. I believe that it's the United States saying, okay, we can think about a different way to provide security for Russia, for Europe, in partnership with Russia, and trying to figure out a way for the Europeans to put in more effort in their own security. So if Istanbul Plus is agreed to by the United States, say in the next 2-3 months, the US agrees to the terms of Istanbul Plus, and you get a full lifting of sanctions, this is a big win for Russia. If that happens, it is a big win, because in Istanbul Plus, the Russians have never said anything about a full lifting of sanctions. I don't think they said sanctions have to be lifted when Putin put out the terms. So can you imagine if Istanbul Plus is agreed on and you get a full lifting of sanctions? Then I think there's no question, there's no debate whatsoever that this is a huge win for Russia. And for the United States, none of their interests are jeopardized in any of this. So for the United States, the US can easily give Russia Istanbul Plus. They can easily agree to Russia's terms. It doesn't affect the US's own national interests, and they can start doing business with Russia. It's the Europeans that kind of get screwed. But I think that was something that we all have seen coming. But yeah, that's my point in all of this, is that Putin's terms, if the United States agrees to Putin's terms and they lift all the sanctions, then there's no debate about it, man. It's a big win for Russia. Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk about Kharkiv and Odessa. Those were not in Istanbul Plus, to be quite honest. So we'll see what happens with other regions that are culturally, historically, linguistically Russian. That can also get solved with a new government in Kiev. I think a lot of that stuff can be ironed out if you have a government that's friendly to Russia in Kiev. So I wanted to say that about the possible trajectory of things. Bloomberg, they put out an article talking about rare earth minerals from disclose.tv. Ukraine has scorched earth. It doesn't have rare earth. Bloomberg reports that Ukrainians talked up the potential of the country's mineral resources. What have we been saying for the past couple of weeks? Elensky, he got played. Ukraine got played. There were no rare earths. There was no 50% of the rare earths. There was none of that. There was none of that. Elensky fell for a negotiations trap. He fell right into it of his own making because he's the first one that offered up the rare earth minerals. The Trump team, they latched onto that, and they exposed Elensky for the joker comedian that he is. Yeah, and now the Trump administration is actually telling Elensky, yeah, you made a big mistake by not agreeing to give us all of your rare earth minerals and your oil and your gas and everything else. You made a big mistake. You see how they've played this? And Elensky got played. He got played big time. He fell for all of this big time, and he's to blame because he's the one that started to talk about Ukraine's minerals going to the United States for weapons and security. He brought it up. And the Trump White House, they completely nailed him on this one because they knew there are no rare earth minerals. That's from Bloomberg. That is from Bloomberg. Let's do a clown world. And let's wrap up this video. Elensky was going to be in Saudi Arabia today, and that trip was canceled. It was canceled. He was in the UAE, then he went to Turkey, met with Erdogan. Erdogan, by the way, he said that perhaps Turkey can host the next round of talks. I say no. I say do not host the talks in Turkey because Erdogan has been playing just a bit of a double game. He's been giving weapons to Ukraine, but also very friendly with Russia as well. So he's been playing both sides. Anyway, Erdogan wants some attention, and he wants to host the next round of talks. But Elensky, after Turkey, was going to go to Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis told Elensky, you can come and visit us. Come with your wife, visit us, hang out, do some sightseeing, but you're not going to get into any meetings, and you're not going to meet with MBS. And you're not going to meet with top-level Saudi officials, and you're not going to be involved in any of the negotiations. But feel free to come over and hang out. And Elensky said, you said, Podolyak. Podolyak, let's just go home. Yeah, so he's going to go back to Kiev. And he told the Saudis he'll come back another time in March, he said. March 10th or something like that, or May 10th. He'll come back. Oh boy, one more clown world. One more clown world? Yeah, let's do one more, or two more. Zero Hedge has an article titled Doge finds 4.7 trillion in virtually untraceable treasury payments. My God, 4.7 trillion. Think about that number. 4.7 trillion in untraceable payments. According to Doge, all these payments were being made. And for some strange reason, these payments were being made, but there were no ways to actually trace where all these payments were going towards. The Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, on Monday revealed its finding that 4.7 trillion in disbursements by the U.S. Treasury are almost impossible to trace, thanks to a rampant disregard for the basic accounting practice of tracking codes when dealing out money. The basic accounting practice of using tracking codes when dishing out money. They weren't using tracking codes. It wasn't a mistake. Wasn't a bug. That's a feature. That's a feature, everybody. They do not use the tracking codes as they're giving this money on purpose. They don't want the American people to know where this money was going. Anyway, let's wrap things up. with Kaya Kallas, Stunning and Brave, and Ursula van der Crazy. They put out posts on X announcing the EU's 16th sanctions package. Ursula says, I welcome the agreement on our 16th package of sanctions. The EU is clamping down even harder on circumvention by targeting more vessels in Putin's shadow fleet and imposing new import and export bans. We are committed to keep up the pressure on the Kremlin. And Kaya Kallas posted, I welcome the agreement on our 16th sanctions package with tighter measures on circumvention, new import and export bans, and sanctions on Putin's shadow fleet. We are closing back doors for Russia's war machine to operate. The Kremlin won't break our resolve. Kallas also posted on X, together with European foreign ministers, I spoke with Secretary Rubio after his talks in Riyadh. Russia will try to divide us. Let's not walk into their traps. By working together with the US, we can achieve a just and lasting peace on Ukraine's terms. Kallas and Ursula just don't get it, do they? They just don't get it, man. You guys are the losers in all of this. You guys are the losers in all of this. And they're talking about a 16th sanctions package. Unbelievable, man. Unfreaking believable. The Kremlin won't break our resolve. You guys are so broken. It's ridiculous how broken you've become. Man, I don't know. Just to wrap it up, I think Orban has to put forward a motion. I don't know how this is done, but he has to put forward some sort of motion in the European Union and ask the question. Ask the question. Can Kaya Kallas and can Ursula serve in their current positions? Should there be a rapprochement between the United States and Russia? Because when you think about it, the only reason Kallas is the foreign minister of Europe is because of her absolute hatred for Russia. That's the only reason she's there, is because she was going to be hawkish and continue to escalate with Russia. And so she became the foreign minister. Once Russia is off the table, she has nothing to do anymore. She has zero purpose. And the same goes for Ursula. Ursula's made a mess of things. So if I was Orban, and I don't know if Orban's listening, but if I was Orban, looking at the way things are moving, I would start preparing to put forward some sort of motion and say, look, we need new leadership at the top level of the European Union. Otherwise, we're done. We're sunk. Orban, Fico. In Romania, you could have Georgescu. You could have Babic in Czech Republic. That's a formidable team. They can put forward some sort of motion and say, we really screwed things up. We need a new foreign minister. We need a new commissioner. We need competent people. Otherwise, we're going to be completely screwed going forward. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.